He told me he was a Springfield native and the son of the largest broom manufacturer in North America. When Aaron was a kid, his father put him in the back of a pickup truck, drove him through the back streets of Springfield, and dropped him off with a pile of brooms on a street corner, and told him not to come home until all the brooms were sold.
We were from Cleveland. The family down south was a Springfield family. There were 6 brothers. We were Cleveland.
Glad you got that straight.
We don't need pets.
He sold every last broom, and when he proudly came home empty-handed, the house was empty and his parents were nowhere to be found. They moved without a forwarding address. It wasn't easy, but Aaron fended for himself and reinvented himself. He became an entrepreneur, travel writer, newspaper columnist, publisher, fundraiser, and event planner. The Jewish boy from Springfield bought a house in German Village, from Cleveland, excuse me, found some Lederhosen and a beer stein, and raised hundreds of thousands of dollars hosting Columbus's annual Oktoberfest back in Alien. He invented another fundraiser called the Ugly Bartender Contest that also raised a pile of money, and he founded the Days of Creation Arts program. He was a consultant for the Cruising on the Riverfront in Columbus, and for 10 years directed OSU Hillel, bringing in world-renowned speakers like Elie Wiesel, Simon Wiesenthal, and the like. He always wanted to give back, which is why he first came to see me way back in 1986. He wanted to set up a charitable fund to support the arts, and he did so making scores of grants throughout the community. Aaron's most recent initiative is to video the life, work, and accomplishment of local Jewish artists. When you think about it, Columbus has a pile of artists from all walks of life. To name a few, James Thurber, George Bellows, Amina Robinson, Elijah Pierce, Nancy Wilson, Ronan Roland Kirk, Beverly D'Angelo, and the like. But what about the Jewish community? We've got lots of Jewish artists with skill and talent. Are they not also a source of great pride? Sure they are. Are they not an intrinsic part of our historical arts community? Absolutely. Last year, Aaron and his wife Beth Irwin and daughter Danny Leventhal Restack produced the first such video tribute to document the wonderful and amazing creative spirit of Nim Chenfield. That video is now housed in the Columbus Jewish Historical Society archives and available for everyone to screen online. Today, we'll see the second such video telling the story of Columbus native, writer, poet, artist, ceramicist, and Jewish philanthropist Michael Rosen. Michael Rosen is the fellow of the Ohio Arts Council, National Endowment of the Arts, and I believe the count is about 150 books, articles, manuscripts, not to mention all the artwork to boot. Before we roll down the screen, I wish to thank those who made the video possible. First, producer Aaron Leventhal. Script designer and interviewer Beth Irwin. Videographer Danny Leventhal Restack. And Mark Singer on the right, who's a professor at the OSU Department of Art. Special thanks as well to Toby Breathe and the Columbus Jewish Historical Society for housing the archive, and the Jewish Community Center, where Michael Rosen began his artistic career. Immediately after the screening, we'll entertain a few questions of Michael. Everyone is welcome then to the reception that follows, and Michael will be available for more opportunities to meet and greet. We also ask that you complete a short survey which asks for your suggestions and recommendations to feature in next year's Leventhal Video Memoir production. Let the show begin.
You know, one of the funny things is since I've done 5 books with Jewish topics themselves, I don't necessarily feel like the spokesmodel for the Jewish people. I don't really know the reason for everything, you know. So over the years, I've had, I'll tell you one funny story. I've had occasions to speak in this manner. I was on tour for the Kids Book of Fishing. So it was one of my first books. It's a how-to guide, line, bobber, sinker, swivel, and Workman at the time was sending authors on big tours. So I did 27 cities in 2 months. And at the time, again, it was before the internet, you would do the cable station, the newspaper, the radio, the morning drive time, the bookstore, you know. So I get on one and I'm in Texas, and it's a phone interview. So I'm doing it on the phone. And they start off with some softball questions. So, is fishing for anyone? Yes, you know. Is it expensive? Oh, no, you know, so we get through there. Nice questions, and then was Jesus Christ part of your life? And I'm like, I'm totally trying to think what page that comes from. And so I say, like a big hook, well, they say that Jesus was a fisherman, and people have been fishing the same way, with a little block, a little piece of bait, and a string. So then the person says, are you Jewish? And I say yes. And they say, well, we hope that you find a way to bring Jesus closer to you in the coming days. And I call my publicist after this interview and I say, why was I on a Christian radio station to talk about fishing? And she said, oh, they must have changed their content or something. And there were 2 of those on that trip. There was another place that took call in, and I was supposed to acknowledge them by name, and one of them, all the calls were, have you seen a dolphin? Because I have, and if anything resembles the glory of God's creation, it's a dolphin. And then I was supposed to respond, like you'd say, Michael. And I would say, I agree. Yeah. Sure.
I'm sure you don't remember this, but when you came to the JCC with your books, there were bunches of little kids, and my daughter was in Ben Rosen's class, and she came home and said, there was some famous author at school, but you know what? He was Ben Rosen's uncle. There you go. So, you never know what fame is going to follow you.
I've been Nona Rosen's son. You know, I've been Nancy Rosen's brother. Yeah, I'm proud of all of that heritage. Sure.
I just have to show you this because in 2nd grade you came. When our son is in 2nd grade, you came to Catholic
That's
camp,
great.
just like you said in the film, and he told you about our dog, and you drew this, and he's now 37. He's now 37, and he kept it.
Oh, get that.
You meant a lot to him, and you still do.
The visual thing has always been a great icebreaker. You know, here I am for 45 minutes with this group of 30 kids. How am I going to win them over fast? Humor is one of them, listening is one of them, and drawing. So I would bring pads and paper and do as many drawings as I could while talking and leave them for the classroom and urging the teacher not to, you know, if I did your dog, that you wouldn't necessarily get the drawing because not everybody else was getting a drawing, but you know, they figured it out in a way that made sense to them. Sure, thank you.
You know so many important authors and writers and poets and artists. Is there one that really captures for you kind of the essence of creativity or how to be creative?
Oh, wow. You know, I spent the most time with Richard Howard in terms of seeing his creative process, he watching my creative process, and we literally would, I'd present a poem, and he would get on his typewriter, I'd select a thing that your pinky would do to erase. And he would rework. They would ask me questions. What does this word mean? I don't want the clarity of this is lost. You already used that word. What about this? And we would step by step do draft after draft of poems, and that was a huge influence. On the other hand, like we brought Jamaica Kincaid once to the New Yorker, and she was the single least helpful person in the world. We had a writer's workshop master's class for 2 universities, and they had questions, and she would say simply things like, well, one day I was working at Wallace Shawn's, and he said, you tell such interesting stories, you should write. So I wrote a few of them, and then they published it in the New Yorker. And then there would be the next question, like, do you revise? No. Like, a lot of help here. No, there were so many, the range of people, from a John Updike, or a Russell Baker, or Tony, who's best friends with Fran Lebowitz, was great friends with, I came to pick her up to take her to an event, and she was hysterical on the phone, just laughing, and I thought, wow, this is a very serious woman. I've seen her smile, she's warm. And I couldn't say, who are you talking to? But she said, Fran Lebowitz's work? And I said, yes, we've had her to the third race. Oh my God, I have to talk to her every day or I can't make it through. So our audiences at the Thurber House always would ask something like, what's your technique? What's your routine? How do you write? Do you use paper? Do you use pen? And for as many writers as we had, there were as many different answers. And the answer I typically give is most of us know when are we at our best, our sharpest, when, what things distract us, how long can we do it before we start getting, blurry. So I think you hope to move from what you sort of intuit about yourself to what you learn about yourself and then maximize that.
I'm just going to ask you a question about Jesus, but I won't. Michael, you lived in some amazing places and very different. I'm just curious how you found the home that you're in now and how that kind of evolved. I know you've been there many years and it's been important to you.
I've been there almost 30 years, and I'm there because Don Vickers, my executive director and dear friend, who I've worked with for many years, had a very close friend, Tom and Marion McCullough. It was their house. We'd had staff retreats there occasionally, and they had bought an additional building in the little town of Glenford, a bank that had opened and closed right around the Depression. And they were ready to give up the farm. And while I don't think at the time I understood what that meant to own 100 acres and 2 buildings, I've always loved, as I mentioned, being in the country, I spent 10 years at Hoover Dam, at both being in camp and then being a counselor at camp and then being a director at camp. So sailing and nature centers and building fires and being on the waterfront. I don't have a waterfront per se, but all of that, and the zoology major. So I have collections of birds' nests and bones and different kinds of sticks. I love the mushroom hunting and the whole piece of, it would be nice to have a little short north 5 minutes away instead of 35 minutes away. But given that I do fill my days making, it's suitable. It's still suitable.
I have a question about the change in technology. So you're saying that poetry is kind of detrimental in that you have to submit a lot, and a lot less money, and but in other avenues, has it helped being, doing something that might be a presentation that would be virtual, or anything else that you could be teaching something that is virtual? What has technology done with your career as of now?
I mean, it's a big topic, of course. I would say the part that concerns me most is haste. We used to labor to do labor. You know, you would have to be thoughtful. You had a temporal span to do. We need this back in 3 months, not 3 weeks, not 3 days. You would get something in the mail. You'd think about it before you would reply. You wouldn't just hit reply and be done. So I think that we've lost reaction time. We've just shrunk it so far. And I think the editorial processes, the submission process, is becoming more perfunctory and more abbreviated, less capable. Every editor that I used to work with had an assistant editor, and they shared the work. Almost no one has an assistant editor now. And everything's expected as a PDF with all of the gobbledygooking track changes. And I think we've lost some of the real editorial author exchange that used to be protracted and engaging, and now is pretty much perfunctory and left to, you know, technology.
I want to thank you all for being here. It's a very big day for me. My daughter and I, I'm 83, she's 52, and it's been a hell of a year. I had a knee replaced. Anyways, a couple of things. The way we're gonna handle this today is we'd like you to all go and sit down at a table. We'll just go around, you'll go up, and you have some great refreshments. Michael and Beth, Nanny, myself will be around here. I want to thank all the generosity of people that made this possible. This started with a vision. I set up this Leventhal Fund, and the purpose was to give money back to the community. And a couple of years ago, in 2022, I said, my daughter's a professor at Ohio State in the art department. And I want to do something with her. So we cooked up this idea that we wanted a legacy for me personally and to give back to the community. And I went to Jackie, and Jackie's been my mentor over 25 years. We're great friends. And I said, I want to do these videos of Jewish artists. I want it to be part of a collection of archives for the Columbus Jewish Historic Society. I'm in it, other people are in it with the writing, but we could bring it to life. And nobody but Mim Schenfeld and Michael J. Rosen could have done it better. So the vision is, thanks to the generosity of people and just the vision, we hope that this is going to carry on. This will be in perpetuity. Believe me, the Columbus Jewish Historic Society is going to blossom. We're going to have something in this community that's going to be the pride of all of us, and these will be in perpetuity. So long after, and years after, and decades after, somebody will go online and they'll be able to see somebody 5, 10, 30 years later bring to life through the video. And that's the vision. And we thank all of you for being here. And if you want to share the vision, we'll be around. So go to a table, sit down, and we'll call you up. And that way you don't have to stand for a half an hour till you get your food.
Thank you.